Hello and welcome to the United Film Podcast. My name is Greg Randolph. I'm a writer and director from Boston, Massachusetts. This podcast is an opportunity for me to tell you about filmmakers currently active in the UK from around the world. Today, Zijian Cai is on the podcast. Zijian is a writer, director, and camera and electrical department extraordinaire from London. He attended the London Film School, which is where we originally met. He wrote and directed his grad film, Tango and Kowloon, which I produced in Hong Kong in 2023. We speak about a recent film he's been a part of called Paradise Found, a science fiction film about love, loss, and acceptance. We also talk a little bit about inspiration for future stories. Zijian Cai, welcome to the United Filmmaker Podcast. How are you?
Well, I'm doing very good, Greg. Long time no see.
I know, man. How are you? Are you good?
Oh, always. You know me.
I love it, man. But you are a very hardworking person in film. You're a director, you're a writer, you're a DOP, and you work in camera and electrical department. So you're all over the map. You've worked on so many projects with so many different people in so many regards. Like even in the past, just as we came on the podcast, like we've talked about like 5 or 6 different films and groups of people that you've been working with. So it's really cool. You were just telling me most recently you're working on getting your motorcycle driving license, which is really cool as well.
Yeah.
So it's cool, man. Like you're doing things, and so this is really just meant to catch up. We've worked on so many projects together. I produced your grad film Tango and Kowloon in Hong Kong. You were assistant camera for 2 films that I wrote and directed, which are very close to my heart: Swimming and Different Faces, which were shot on film, which wasn't easy because with Swimming we shot on the Araflex 416.
4 and 6, yeah.
Which is a really fun experience, really interesting camera, that's like a fun camera to work on for 16 millimeter. It's kind of the one that you want to work on, right? That's kind of the...
I would say so. It's the newest one, 16 mil wise. That exists, I think, as far as I know.
And we shot on the Millennium XL2.
That was a
Panavision beast.
That was a beast to deal with, yeah.
On 35 mil, and that was super fun, man. Like, I mean, maybe from my angle, but you guys made it happen. I mean, there wasn't a frame that we missed. You know, everything looked very beautiful and clear, thanks to you, Bethany and Sun Sing, and of course, Charles. You know, Gaffer and his team, Vibahov and Lorenzo and so on. So you've helped me in that regard in many ways. And then you just DOP'd a film by Peter Borick.
At the beginning of the year, yeah.
And the name of that film again is?
Paradise Found, because it was a parody of Paradise Fall.
And that was a really interesting film as well. I want to talk about all these things. That the Paradise Found was just screened at kind of the end of the... So it was just screened for crits. And I believe I believe it's completed now. So I imagine it's kind of looking for its festival.
I think it's finishing touches at the moment. I think they recently just graded it about a month ago. So,
but it's super cool. And I want to talk about all those things. But usually, what I like to do to kind of get some bearing on the conversation is talk about what got you into filmmaking and just a little bit about what kind of spurred this whole idea that films is something that you wanted to work in and learn more about and go to school for and all this stuff. Just again, for a little bit more context, you're a London Film School student. You were a couple of terms above me. But yeah, I'd love to hear a little bit about what drew you to this thing that we do.
Oof. In terms of filmmaking or LFS specifically?
I would say in terms of filmmaking. Like I know you're a big Wong Kar-wai guy. I know you've shown me a lot of really, really cool Hong Kongese films. Farewell My Concubine being one of them.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Yeah, that was technically a mainland movie. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. That's correct. But you've also shown me
Comrade Almost Love Story. Yeah, Pia Chan. Yeah.
And a lot of Anhui films.
Yeah.
Which are really, really fantastic. You've kind of got me on board with all that. But let's start at the beginning and hear a little bit about.
At the beginning.
Yes, please.
Well, like many people who fall in love with modern day filmmaking, I think Quentin Tarantino is such a big influence. The way he talks about his love for cinema and different movies, even if it doesn't have to be highbrow, it's just films all around the world, you know, the way he talks about like Asian cinema and, you know, and stuff like Kill Bill, how it pays homage to the great martial art cinemas in Hong Kong, during the golden age of Hong Kong. I think his passion is what really drew a lot of people into making movies, or trying to make movies. You know, he's probably one of the most referenced, you know, filmmakers in modern times. And specifically, it was when I watched Kill Bill, and there's this, and the way he talks about how much he loves about like martial art movies and Bruce Lee, something, how he uses references in that movie. I think it's so fascinating that he shows his love through making homages. And personally, I think as a young or early in the career filmmakers, I think a lot of us just steals and borrows from the people we admire. You know, as they say, I think one of the greatest compliment is to imitate someone else, right? But of course, you know, it's also a way personally that I find to find self-expression in that case. You know, for example, you know, as going back to Tango and Kowloon, you know, it's very clear homage to, you know, the Wong Kar-wais and the Peter Chans and the Ang Huis of the 90s Hong Kong cinema. And even the way the costumes are addressed, it's almost like timeless, or like a vision or an imagination of what like 90s Hong Kong would be like from a lot of people from foreigner perspective, you know, that sees Hong Kong as this from the eyes of like a Wong Kar-wai movie or like Peter Chan movie, you know. So, you know, with the leather jackets and the dancing. So going back to your question, what drew me the most is just the idea of the fun and passion of filmmaking. It's something. I'm a quite interesting person in the sense that I don't have like one niche that I particularly like or I focus on. I focus on a lot of different things, and that's what makes me good at what I do, I think. You know, in a sense that I drew a lot of my own inspirations from many different aspects in life. And filmmaking is one thing that I feel I can use to express myself quite well, that a lot of my own personal experiences in different fields, such as when I was a kid, when I was younger, a teenager, when I studied computer science, and that ended up helping me a lot of technical aspects in filmmaking, in the technical side. A lot of movies that when I was a kid I had to pirate to watch because we weren't coming from a wealthy background. Those helped me understand or fall in love with cinema, or like what makes a good movie or what makes good storytelling, because it's almost like, you know, Slumdog Millionaire, where there are moments when you're working and then there is this flashback to these one small thing you did as when you're younger that contributes to solving a problem that I try to deal with at the moment. And I think that's and I think filmmaking is a platform that I could use to utilize all these experiences I have in life.
Can you tell me about at what point did you start to think that, I want to do an MA at film school? What was it? Where did you go to undergrad? Maybe you can tell me a little bit about. I would love to hear. Okay, so I've got an idea of kind of some filmmakers that really inspired you. Can you tell me a little bit about like your first experience, like making a film, or like actually a practical like experience making it where you felt like, oh yeah, this is really cool, and then maybe how that grew through undergrad, and then sparked in your idea the interest in wanting to do an MA, because it's a leap. You know what I mean? I think everyone that decides to do that film school leap, there's no guaranteed job. So it's very much like cross your fingers and do and work as hard as you can, which is exactly what you've done. You know what I mean? You just threw yourself at the work once you made that decision, which is very clear. So I want to hear about everything before you made that leap, and then what that leap was like.
I wouldn't say it's such a big leap for myself personally. I studied film longer than most people, I would say, because I went to a secondary school that's actually called a high school. I went to a high school that actually had a film studies course, and that introduced me to, or at least the artistic aspects of filmmaking, the expressionist aspects of filmmaking. I had a very good teacher at the time who really helped inspired me to pursue filmmaking, and it gave me opportunities to make these ridiculous short movies. I don't know if you've seen
This is undergrad or high school?
Oh, this is high school.
Cool.
I made this ridiculously silly, one of my first films I made, which I absolutely adore. It's like a little short horror movie, starring myself, and like my friend Michael was like the camera operator at the time, and operator, as someone told the camera, really. When you were like 15, we don't really think too much about this. But, and it was like this short film about like a guy going home and sees an Elmo on a table, the classic, and then it turns out it's like a scary evil monster that tried to kill the protagonist. And it was one of my favorite films I made, ironically. Out of all this other stuff I did, it's one of my favorite because it was made during a time where I didn't really care too much about technicalities or like cinematography. I just wanted to make things and edit things that I wanted to do and fun. And ironically, it's the most viewed piece of media I made. It has like 50,000 views, probably like 60 by now, on YouTube, which I think is horrifying because it's like, you can argue that's the worst thing you ever made, but like it's also the most fun. You almost miss that kind of joy in filmmaking sometimes when you work a lot on set. Because everyone's trying so hard, so you don't want to, forgive my language, you don't want to fuck it up. And it's so tense a lot of times. And honestly, I think sometimes the best thing you can do is just relax and enjoy yourself. And in a way, sometimes you make the best work that way. In my opinion. I know a lot of people can disagree, so I'm very controversial in that sense.
No, that's a great. No one has said that on the podcast like that. I think that idea of like... maybe we can even link the video in the bio.
Oh gosh, like yeah, maybe. I do love it. It's almost like a piece of lost childhood in a weird way. That feeling of like you've lost the reason why you want to make movies. I
get it.
That sort of enfant terrible early days.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be boring, but yeah, I went to uni afterwards for film studies, and honestly, practical wise, it was awful. Like we had a little, we didn't really teach you very much about technicality stuff, like basic camera stuff. I probably know more than the people who taught me teaching, because those people are only there, a lot of the teachers are only teaching theory crafting, and analysis, and quite literally film studies. They're not here to teach you the practical aspect, even though there is like a little filmmaking exercise at the end, but most of it was really like analyzing film and trying to read movies, and that introduced me to a lot of very interesting movies, including Wong Kar-wai, ironically.
Cool.
And and we, a lot of us, in fact, actually have like think that we should do more work outside. So we formed a little film group to make little short films, terrible horror movies, outside of class, and that's just kind of. Did that for about a year or so until the gang split up. But anyway, long story short, we graduated at university, and it was COVID. Really awful time.
Yeah.
And honestly, I didn't know what I wanted to do afterwards. Like, I really want to pursue movies, where I wanted to.
And can I ask you, can you tell me a little bit about like your family and I would love to hear, because I think it's like you kind of have an interesting. Your father has an interesting job, and I'd like to hear about how, like, did they have an interest in film at all? Like I'm curious about like kind of the family dynamics, and like I always think that that situation, it can fuel kind of like where you end up going in life a little bit.
Well, as all great Asian parents are, they absolutely hate when you do film. I'm sure when you interview some of our Asian colleagues, they would probably reiterate a similar point. That being said, I believe...
They do seem supportive, right? I think at least that's what I get.
My dad more so than my mother.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a very conservative mother who believes doing very typical, like career is the way to go, and unfortunately, I'm not like that kind of guy. I'd be so bored out of my mind of having to work the same job every single day for years and going to the same place and doing the same thing. That being said, my dad is very supportive because he believes, and thankfully so, he is one of the few people or Asian dads who believe that you can find success in anything that you do as long as you put your mind into it. Nice. And I really respect him for that. Mm-hmm.
And he's quite a impressive chef. I've had the pleasure of being invited to his restaurant and having a nice meal there, and that was really, really cool. Really interesting, really cool restaurant, and very nice night. So
he is a very talented man, far more so than I am, and I would dare to say that he is an artist in his own accord too.
I've always drawn this line. I talk with people every once in a while about this line between cooking and filmmaking. There's something there. I don't know what it is, but like there's something to it. I think it has something to do with the ingredients, and the mixing of ingredients with time is like a very important part of the ingredient. And I don't know. I think there's some joy I get from that, and some joy I get from the movie making as well.
I would say, this is from only anecdotes from my dad's experience. Obviously, I'm not a chef.
You cook as well, and you're obviously a food connoisseur. Because when we went to
Hong Kong, I like good food. Yes.
when we went to Hong Kong, you showed me all the delicious places to eat. We had great dumplings. We had great. The rice
pots.
Oh my goodness!
Oh yeah, I remember.
Out on the street in the middle, because it was August when we were shooting. Like sweltering hot. But just like a really, really fun time. So we worked hard making the film with Jody. Shout out to Jody over in Hong Kong, who was the Hong Kong producer. But we'll get to that. We're going to get to that exciting conversation soon. But we're still kind of discussing some of these early kind of motivations.
Well, from my dad had many anecdotes about his life as a chef, and the main thing I would say is we work in very similar fields, though it doesn't seem like it on the outside. We're both very hard, especially once you work in a high-end restaurant, I presume. That what we're doing is quite similar in the sense that you're working in a very high, intense rush situation. Right. They're trying to make art for the masses in a weird way.
Yeah.
And I would say, there is a distinctive difference between like a chef and a cook. A lot of people often confuse that or conflate the same thing, in the sense that a cook is someone who shows up and does the cooking, basically. Yeah, similar to what you would call like an assistant or spark or something like that. Not that they're not important; they're just as much important in the whole field as a whole. In the whole,
technically minded and doing I guess I guess a director. DOP is kind of that in charge of the production of the project, right? In charge of that kind of technical animal, I guess.
And I would say a chef would be the creative mind behind
it.
Think DOP, director, etc.
Okay, yeah, fair. It's not A to B, but I totally get what you mean.
Because the challenge of being a chef and in a sense an artist is that we're here to please the audience in the end of the day, and that's the difficult bit. It's not really to make something look good, it is to make something look good, but like. I think once you get to a certain level, it's really about pleasing the audience. And because the audience, unfortunately, in the end of the day, lines your pocket. So, in a good way and a bad way, I think many people see it as a bad thing, a lot of creatives. But I think a lot of producers think it's a good thing.
Totally.
So, just to, let's segue back into filmmaking.
I love it.
It's also the reason why one of my favorite movies is Ratatouille.
Nice.
The famous quote in Ratatouille, in the end of Ratatouille, from Anton Ego, was that, let me have a think so I don't misquote it. Not everyone can be an artist, but an artist can come from anywhere. And I am a firm believer of that quote, in the sense that I wouldn't personally judge anyone from different backgrounds, regardless of backgrounds or ability that I see them personally at the moment, or what other people see them as, that I think everyone has a capability to become that artist.
I never heard that quote before. I gotta watch Ratatouille.
You gotta brush up on your Ratatouille quotes. It's a fantastic movie, although about a chef, a little rat chef. Really, it's a story about an immigrant going into a new country and trying, try to get used to the world that's very hostile to him, and yet he thrives and attempt to thrive in that limited space. I think it's a fascinating, beautiful movie. Although he's about a little rat.
Yeah. Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a great quote. Great quote.
Yeah, one of my favorites, I would say.
That's really, really good. I'm getting a very good sense of kind of a little bit of the background now, because I do the same thing with my own parents a little bit, kind of applying their own kind of walk of life. And it's never, right, with different career paths, it's not always just, I can just make a correlation back and forth. But there's some type of, if you look up to your parents and you kind of believe in how they did things and want to apply that to your own life, but in our field, you try and make some correlations and make it kind of all fit together in some way, or to be inspired in some way by them. So I like to ask that question sometimes. Tell me about, we got kind of up to COVID. Tell me a little bit about the idea to go to LFS. What was the kind of the thought process in that aspect of things? And tell me a little bit about being at LFS and what you think it helped you with, and maybe a project that was especially important to you. Now, it's really interesting you talking about your film you did when you were 15 that is one of your favorite things you've done, and how actually the progression into more and more serious project has left you maybe with wanting a little bit, and that carefree attitude is starting to dissipate a little bit. So my question is, I'd still like to hear about a project at school that was really, and let's leave the grad films out of it, Tango and Koon, because I want to talk about those separately. So I'd like to hear some, because you worked on so many. I mean, you've probably got to be hundreds.
It's probably 200 at this point. I've lost count after 100, I think.
Yeah, so you've been involved with a ton of stuff. I mean, you've got an incredible amount of experience. So I'd like to hear that. And let's just start with kind of like your LFS decisions and that type of stuff.
Why I chose LFS?
Yeah.
Well, the truth is there was nothing to do during COVID. There wasn't any work. It was very unlikely I was going to get into the industry from whatever little degree that I had from De Montfort Uni. So I thought the best thing to do was to keep myself educated, keep myself busy. So I chose to go to film school. Now, specifically why LFS, and I think they like to hear this bit, is because even at the time, it's this dream of going to the best film school in the world, NFTS, and my opinion about that. And what makes, at least what appears from the outside, what makes LFS different at the time from something like NFTS is that it seemed to reward more of the roguish filmmaking style that I aspired to be at the time. The way that you made a movie because you wanted it, not because you want to please someone, or you need to hand in a homework, or you needed to make money so you can survive. This what LFS at times sort of possessed, this sort of what's the word? Spirit. Yeah. The spirit of going out and doing things you love, regardless of cost, regardless of regardless of effort, and just put your 100% into it. It's not uncommon that we heard these stories back in the days, and I'm sure you heard alumni, where it's called alumni from back when they would say like they would work on a movie for so long at school, even though it was only 4-day shoot, they would literally almost sleep at the location because they loved doing it so much that it was more about expressing your love for it through hard work and discovery, you know. And the fact that not everyone came from a filmmaking background, I think that's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
In a way, some people can see it disadvantageously because, you know, some people it's hard to integrate into the filmmaking world when you're not used to it. But I would say it's more of an advantage because they have aspects of the experience that a traditional filmmaking background or family or like education wouldn't bring you. And you know, similar to what I said earlier, that filmmaking is a field where different experiences can come together and create something beautiful.
Yep.
And so that's why I chose LFS. I wanted to go and do something, finally make movies, as I say, practically. You know, go there and do things and work as hard as I can, you know, in the hopes of one day able to step one tiny toe in the industry and be able to experience this, or having this space to...
Yep.
Let me have a think. To have this space for self-expression. I think a lot of people, especially when it comes to film school, I think it's almost hilarious in retrospect that we take it so seriously.
Yeah.
In a sense that
I mean,
it's
like full out. You might as well
yeah.
be brawls, you know. You're
We've heard many stories, right?
Like,
but in retrospect, it's so insignificant, right?
Because it's just this little. It's like this little, you know, like as big as a studio maybe.
Yeah.
And you built the set, and you get the lighting going, and you do the whole thing, and it's like the passion and just the. I think it's also a little bit because it's something that ends up on the screen, right, for your term 4 or maybe at the end of the term, you know, all the showcase and stuff like that. It is reputation oriented, and it's kind of a visualization of your reputation in some way, if it's good or bad or mediocre. And so even in that little school of 200 or 300 or however many people go to LFS, it feels like so much on the line. And if you're up here, maybe you have a better chance of making it in the industry or getting into that film festival for your grad film or something like that. So that's the mindset. But I completely agree with you. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how we kind of get stuck in like that. And I think it's just the power of the movie making, where it's so exciting to like make something for the screen that like even Alice yesterday, she showed me the term 4 film she gaffed is about it's this father and son, and the father became estranged and left. And the whole story is that he comes back. He says, "I've been abducted by aliens." I don't mean to give this term 4 film away. And at the end of the film, you know, he'd say, "Yeah, sure, Dad, you got abducted by aliens." Yeah. At the end of the film, he's abducted. The light comes down, and he lifts off the ground, and he goes up to the spaceship, and you know, she's telling me stories about all, you know, things happening, and it's like, I think that's the funny aspect of it, is that it's like, it is kind of special. You know, it's special that 5 or 6 people come together as HODs at the school and create an idea where a guy gets lifted off the ground and goes into it, and you watch it and it feels real. It looks amazing. You know, like, because you really do get talented people who can shape light and make it look like a spaceship's coming down, picking them up off the ground, the feet coming off the ground, everything. It's kind of the thing. Like, if you were to go into a room and see someone get abducted by aliens, that might be what it looks like. You know what I mean? You know? So yeah, it's that mystery of it that's so special, and I think that's what gets people so excited, right? I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think, man, that's a hard question to answer.
Well, no, it's not really a question. It's more just like, because you were talking about, it's funny that people get so. It's like if you look at it outside, because you're talking about your perspective now that you've gone through school and you've put so much into that schooling. So I'm just kind of like I'm trying to kind of like shed some more light on like why it is kind of interesting or funny how much we put into it as film students or otherwise. I don't know. I thought that story was kind of it reminded me when she showed me those images. It just kind of reminded me like, oh, that is really cool. Yeah. You know, just on the phone, you know?
Of course. I mean, the passion people have, especially at film school, to make the stuff they want, they love is there. I mean, that's why therefore the drama. If nobody cared, there wouldn't be drama, right?
Right.
You know, even though it's very insignificant in the grand scheme of things, it's a representation of the passion that people have for the field, and in a way, it's like almost a microcosm of. At least I see it as like a microcosm of the film industry in a way, you know, that if you make something good or you're talented, you have good reputation, that you can have more people who like to support you and your work. But of course, once you leave school, it almost resets. And in the end of the day, what you do in film school is not as connected as what you would do for work outside. That being said, it is the place where you begin. And personally, I see it as an opportunity to learn as much as I can before I get there.
At LFS.
Before I get to as a career.
Cool. I get it. Yeah. No, it's really like interesting kind of like conversation like in regards to just like what it is, because I was gonna say it's something like you kind of stumble across it when you find an image that is like arresting, and like even if it's a group of film school students that make it, again kind of going back to that alien abduction thing, I'm making it sound like it's this whole thing, but like I think what's interesting about it is that like you might read the script and go, oh yeah, whatever, you know, but when you film it and you light it and you have actors involved in it, there is that quality that when you look through the viewfinder you go, oh my god, like we're actually doing it. This isn't just like a funny little exercise. And I think there's something that makes, you talk about the drama of it, or arguing and kind of like, oh, you know, the DOP is telling me to do this and the gaffer won't listen to me and the director's trying to break them up and this person is this way, and it's like, I think there's something about when you stumble across something that's really interesting like that visually, it's kind of like exploration.
Yes.
I think that's the fun of it. It's like we've discovered everything on Earth, right? And then to go to space and maybe one day be on Mars would be kind of exciting, but we're kind of exploring like a world in the camera, and that world is essentially infinite, and there's a lot you can discover when you put people together and build a world in front of the camera, and that's really cool. Like it's just very that is exciting, and that kind of just gets people's minds like it enriches in like a really interesting way. Yeah.
Well, I think a good way to put it would be saying that I think film school is a good place to make mistakes.
Sure.
To condense it into like a quote. I would say that because a lot of people are afraid of doing that, which I find really funny. Because, you know, in film school, it's, like I said, it's a microcosm of the film industry. So everyone thinks, oh, if I make a mistake, then I have a bad reputation. If I damage something, I don't know, people's going to say this about me and this about me, then I'll never get opportunity, which can happen, but, you know, you make your way back. You know, you prove to people that you're not that. And I think many people has been there and done that. You know, like we all made big mistakes, although not many that you may have heard of. That's because not people are proud of the mistake that they make. But I'm one of the few people who, in a weird way, I don't mind talking about my mistakes because that's what makes a person, right? That's what makes you.
I got it. Okay, so then this is my next question, which leads us right into LFS. Tell me about a mistake you made at LFS. Like, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but like, it could be during a film. It could be like, I think it should be more practically oriented, where maybe you regretted a decision you made as a gaffer or as a DOP or this or that. But maybe at LFS, because we're talking about that as the place that you're allowed to, you know?
Well, that's the funny thing. I've made mistakes, sure, you know, many different ones. I think more social and workflow wise than technicality.
Sure.
Because technicality stuff, it's very minor at the end of the day. Like you make a mistake as a gaffer, you forget to turn on a light, or you turn too many lights, so you make. You know, at the end of the day, it's
a mistake
fixable.
in your mind. You know what I mean? Not like a mistake
in my
like
mind.
that, like someone else, like where you came back from a set and you went, I thought if I had the opportunity to do that scene again, or that, you know, with the camera or this or that, or Yeah, I don't know. I know that's a tricky
It's a tricky question because I'm the wrong person to ask. Because the answer is no. No, I don't think I made any. No, not that I don't make any mistakes. I don't regret making any more mistakes. That's the way to put it.
Got it. No. I'm not asking about regret. I'm asking about.
Or did I fuck up something in
No,
set?
I'm asking.
Did I drop a lens or?
Anything like that? Yeah, anything. Like maybe. Did you ever break anything? Did you ever?
Yeah, that happens. Small things, thankfully, nothing expensive usually.
Yeah.
I'm quite fortunate in that case, especially in AC when you touch a lot of very expensive, delicate equipment.
Like for example, like I'm talking, and this isn't really like a mistake, but like say for like on Different Faces, we were in this old house, making the film, and I think there was a time when we were using a combination of like LED lights and some tungsten lights, and I think we kept. And this is a minor mistake. Like it happens everywhere you go, but it's just like as an example. And you weren't even in the lighting department, so it's not, I'm just talking about like simple little mistakes. Like, and the fuses kept flipping, and the owner started to get angry, and I wasn't really aware of it, and it was like we were trying to light like an entire big house, and it was like kind of like a tricky thing, anyways, and we didn't really put a whole lot of like. There should have been some more planning, I think, just overall from all different aspects of it. But I think the owner came out at one point and was like a little bit angry about that. You know what I mean? Like that type. I'm talking about like those types of things, like those little.
Ooh. Here's the thing about stuff like that. I think at the end of the day, they're all learning experiences. So I think it's better to make them than not make them.
Or how about this? How about
that's why I'm almost the wrong person to asking that
I get
question. If you ask me personally, what kind of mistakes I regret doing, is definitely in terms of attitude.
Tell me.
Personality. I can't pinpoint a specific one, but there have been more times than one which I regret the way I talk to people, the way I regret the way that I treat people, especially in a tense situation. I make mistakes, get to it in Tango and Kowloon, I'm sure. And honestly, that is to me the worst thing. Not the small technical aspect, you forgot the light, you overpowered the socket, those are fixable problems.
Yeah.
I mean, so is personality, but in a way that's almost harder, you know? One of our, my personal tutor, Joe Dyer, I don't know if you've talked to him, talk about him, Joe, and he told me this thing, he calls it the beast, which is your passion, I guess that's analog for your passion, or your flaming passion for things, and that makes you very eager to do things, especially do it perfectly. As a result, you expect a lot from people who you shouldn't expect that expectation from, or you shouldn't treat it so aggressively. I think there's been more than one time that I know that I get too desperate seeking perfection from people that you get frustrated, you get annoyed at them, and that's so unnecessary. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because all these small things, small aspects, especially in modern day technology, like technical wise, it's very fixable. And to be honest, in the end of the day, people don't watch a movie for lighting or the cinematography or for focus pulling ability. People watch it for the story and for the acting. In a very weird and disappointing way to a lot of great DOPs. People don't watch it for the cinematography. Great cinematography and bad script, and it's still a shit movie.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Okay, I get it. That's a really good answer, actually. So my question is, I think we've talked about LFS now, and there's not really a need to really dig deep in there. Let's talk about the grad film. Let's talk about Tango and Kowloon, because that was a super fun film, and that was like a dream of yours. I remember in school you were telling me, Greg, I want to make a film in Hong Kong, and I was like, okay, all right, yeah, cool. And then at some point we started talking about, hey, would you be interested in producing it? Had I produced a film before? I think so. I'm not sure exactly what the chronology of the films I produced. I produced, I think, 4 grad films overall altogether. But tell me about the idea for Tango and Kowloon, how that came about, and I'd like to hear about just your. You have a deep love for Hong Kong cinema. Tell me about the idea for Hong Kong and Kowloon, and tell me about kind of the early planning of it, and we can kind of chime in together because we were both really a big part of making the film happen, and then how we got essentially to set the table for the audience. We kind of got on board We recruited a lot of LFS students. Some came to Hong Kong with us. Some we recruited who were in either mainland China or in Hong Kong. And we made the film in August of 2023? 2024.
Oh my god, it's been 2 years,
I think
hasn't
it's
it?
2023.
Free, right? Yeah. Oh,
We made it in August 2023. So I was in we were in Airbnbs kind of in all around Hong Kong. You have an uncle living in the city, so you would stay with him, who he came out every once in a while. Andy Leung, who is DOP of the film, is from Hong Kong, so his family was bringing us meals, sometimes, and little care packages and stuff like that.
Shout out to Andy's mom.
Yeah,
bring those amazing soups for us on
we
set.
even went to their flat at one point and had a really nice meal the day before the shoot. So it was really a cool like hodgepodge of people who had. I had been to Hong Kong once with my family years ago, but this was kind of my first time really back in a long time, and it was just an amazing little kind of mix of LFS, people from Hong Kong, from around, and we just had like it was hot. It was just like hot, and we filmed in a restaurant. We filmed in where were we? What was that? Where we filmed on the roof? What was that? That was like
the old
like
making mansion.
Yeah.
MEIK.
Yeah, and just we had lots. We even afterwards filmed a big documentary in the film school. What was the name of the film school there? We still have all that footage.
Performing Arts, Hong Kong Performing Arts.
Yeah, we filmed we interviewed a bunch of people at the Hong Kong Performing Arts Center.
Still didn't have time to edit it. 8 hours of footage, and it's all very, very cool stuff. I'm not even gonna lie. Like stuff we captured is so. It's like so documentary, I guess. It's less like documentary, more like a perspective of what we're doing at the time. It's almost nostalgic.
Well, I had my JVC, my little handy cam, so I filmed a ton of the making of Tango and Kowloon, and then we went off to the Hong Kong Performing Arts Center and filmed, the different cameras and things they offer there, and we also filmed a lot at Salon Films where we rented a lot of the camera equipment.
It's a very cool historical place.
That was a really cool place. We saw all their old film 35mm cameras, some really cool lenses from back in the day, and all these really cool pictures from it was like the history of Hong Kong cinema in this rental house in the center of the city. So it was really cool. It felt like a big schooling of like all these different things when I was there. So let's go back to what I just said. Tell me a little bit about where the idea came from and what the early kind of development stages were like, and then I can chime in.
Where should I begin? Because the truth is, at the time, I had no idea what I wanted to do for my grad film. It's not as magical as most people describe their grad film. And what was interesting is there was this in the group chat, they posted this like list of where do you want to shoot your grad film, or where would you like to shoot your grad film? As I took it, as I interpreted that question, I was like, I probably want to do it cheap, do it in the UK, and then get it done, right? Graduate and hopefully get some work. But the way they phrased the question, where would you like to shoot your grad film? That really inspired me in a weird way. I was like, I would always I always loved Hong Kong cinema, Cantonese cinema specifically, and it's like, well, why don't I just go there and fuck it, just put Hong Kong, because let's be ambitious. Even if I don't get it, whatever, people don't really expect you to actually shoot in Hong Kong, so it's like, let's do something ambitious, let's attract some people and make it sound like a lot cooler than it really is. That's how it actually began. Here's the thing: the Tango and Kowloon is an interesting script because it came from very different iterations. The first iteration, 3 different iterations, I believe, or 4. I've lost count because for me, I've drafted so many. Like you haven't seen the draft previous. Before what it is today, but it came from. It's like a way of retelling the story 3 times. That's how I did it. Based on like one theme or aspect I'm really interested in exploring in storytelling. The first iteration of the script was actually more like a pulpy like drama tragedy, romantic tragedy. Almost like a Shakespearean tragedy about a woman who is dying and they hired a escort effectively to sort of give her experience of love before she passed away. And it's this ridiculous little poppy story where they go out to explore different aspects that she wants to do because of her illness, that she can't leave the house. I think it was immunodeficiency. It's based on this. The idea is based on this story about this VTuber, believe it or not, who is like a YouTuber he's a virtual avatar, but the idea that she makes money from this because she can't physically leave the house due to her illness. So it's like her way of interacting and socializing with people to make up for lost time, effectively. And I sort of took that idea and like made a little story like, what if she does go out and explore? What would she do? What would she want to do? And a lot of people think, oh, it must be something fancy or romantic, like a date or dinner or whatever. But like, it's Hong Kong, and people are a bit more humble than that. People don't want to do some fancy experience or some expensive voyage. And I figured, oh, why don't they just go out and do something cute, like go to an arcade and do a bit of karaoke, or like go out and buy the toys that she really wanted, before she passed away. Anyway, that was the first iteration of the story, and part of me really liked it. It's one of those weird things to say, but I actually cried at the ending of this own story. Read it again, it's like, oh, it's so emotional. Oh my god, because I love these pulpy drama, and I'm a sucker for that. Because it's a
destined for failure type of thing, or like kind
no,
of
I cried because it was so emotional, but like so funny, and so like not funny, but like it's so like cutesy, melodramatic. Yeah, it's like a melodramatic romance. It's very cutesy, melodramatic ending where the main protagonist, who is told from the perspective of the escort, who's also called Leslie in the film, and like, he doesn't want to sing because he only sings to the person he loves, and him being an escort means like he never really falls in love with any of his clients. So in the end, he sings because he actually likes the girl that he's talking to, and she's gonna die that night, and then they watch this sort of like beautiful sunrise as they sing this very sweet sweet song by Joanne Huang, anyway, that's first iteration. But then in a good way and in a bad way, the first draft I had it was much more simpler. I had a better idea of what I wanted, but one aspect I wanted to explore more of was this idea, because in the first draft, in the first iteration of the story, he's a typical straight man, right? It's just that he doesn't partake emotionally with his work. And I'm really interested in the aspect of like, based on this article I read sort of around a similar time about people who works in the sex industry who are asexual as well. And what's fascinating is that you would question, like, oh, that's a bit odd, when you're asexual, why would you do something so hypersexualized, And one aspect is like that sort of discussed in the article was how the irony of being asexual, meaning that it actually almost helps work, because a lot of your job, and then despite how intimate it is a job, and being asexual means you wouldn't really have any emotional attachment to your clients or the people that you have. It would just be natural to you to not be attached, although I don't think many people would be attached, I guess. And I want to explore this aspect with the future iteration of Tango and Kowloon, where I focus more on this asexual aspect of Leslie, the escort of the story, and I want to tell a story where it flips the traditional romantic roles, where you have the guy pursuing the girl. In this case, you have the girl, Cecilia, who wants to pursue the guy, the escort, which is ironic, And I also wanted to tell a story where the woman in the story, the female love interest, is a bit older and a bit more experienced, where the male love interest is a bit more, almost like, despite being an escort, which is a much more physical aspect of the whole thing, right? As opposed to being the more emotional one. Specifically a sex worker. He was more of a sex worker, where it's more about to him, it's more about the job is more physical than is the emotional attachment. What he is afraid of was the emotional attachment aspect. Him being asexual but yet romantic, someone who's still able to have feelings for people and yet doesn't want to engage the physical aspect.
For sure.
That's why in spoilers in the beginning of the movie that he has this unfortunate experience of one of the clients.
Yep.
And that traumatizes him. And I wanted to sort of explore a little bit into sort of like sexual trauma with men as well and how they deal with it.
For sure.
And throughout the film, it's not on the surface. We'll only see how he reacts to it when he's on his own, when he's alone. And from the outside, when he's with other people, although very, very rarely, that he doesn't really bring up. And only when he's on his own in a little bedroom where he's looking towards this little fan in the sky, that's where we show that he's traumatized by the experience. But I also want him to bring him back to what he really loves. But bring him back to what he really is struggling with, which is this dilemma of being asexual and yet romantically attracted to someone. And yet having to juggle that with the job of being an escort, and that's why throughout the film it's more about Cecilia trying to help Leslie deal with, well, not just his trauma that he had in the beginning of the movie, but his dilemma with his asexuality. Not that you see it a lot in the film, to be honest. Like, it's not very on the surface. This is what the film means to me.
No, I think this is the best you've described the film. I think maybe because you've had some perspective on it and you've been able to watch it and kind of think about it, but the way you're describing it to me now is the best description I think I've gotten of it. And it's much clearer now, and that's interesting. And I almost want to not... I've been reading the log line for some of the films for some of the people I've been interviewing, but I don't want to, because we got to get a premiere for this film.
Tango.
Yes.
Hopefully.
We've screened it. We've had a private screening.
Yeah.
We screened Tango, Different Faces, and Dominic Joseph's film. We had like a private screening for the three of us. But we need to. And I think this is the way you're describing it to me. This would be like a great way to say, like, come and watch the film one day. We either at Hong Kong International Film Festival or otherwise.
Hopefully so. I mean, they rejected me once, so.
Well, maybe we'll find.
We'll pick another one.
We'll find something else.
But to almost explain that, that's because I never thought about that when I was making a movie. Well, I mean, I felt that when I was making a movie, I didn't think that's what the film was about. I think maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people, when they write and they direct, they tunnel vision into this feeling or this thing that they want to do. In a weird way, the best person who knows your film is someone who's not you. It's kind of funny and ironic thing where a lot of times I see, when you work on set, I always read the script, because that showcases what the director's vision is, or at least what they put on paper. But I always ask them to explain what the film is about, because what they put on paper and what they explain it is very different oftentimes. Not very, but like a lot of aspects that they try and explain, they try to deal with, they try to say isn't really on it. And it's not their fault, it's because we're all quite young and sort of inexperienced, but at the same time, writing a script is very, what's the word? Sensitive?
Yeah.
Revealing?
Yeah.
Because no one wants to admit it, but every script is kind of about yourself in a way. As Raphael says, like
our term one tutor, Raphael Kopinski.
Term one tutor Kopinski. As Raphael says, stories about, you always have to find the truth. What's the word? What does he put it? How does he put it? The thingy truth. Sorry, just give me a second.
The dramatic dilemma?
Not the dramatic dilemma. It's the idea. Sorry, just have a small break.
Take your time.
Because I need to nail this word because it's so important.
You can look up on your phone. I mean, whatever.
Dramatic truth? No. Truth or reality? Oh, I should note this down. I feel so bad. Can explain it. I can explain it this way. It's finding the truth behind the story.
Yeah.
And what's weird about that is that stories are fictional. So I always took that quote, or took that phrasing, as in to tell a true story using lies. That's what I see filmmaking, as fictional filmmaking as. And I think that's fascinating. And to go back into Tango and Kowloon, and go back to how I see other people's script and filmmaking work, is that people are very, when they write scripts or when they showcase scripts, it's a very vulnerable moment. Because you do put a piece of stuff, even though people don't like to admit it, they do put a piece of themselves in it, their own script. And it's scary. Show it to people go, oh, this character's a bit, I don't know, I don't like him. It's like, and they'd be like, oh, that's me. It's like, oh, does he not like me? Oh my god, maybe I shouldn't reveal more about myself. And honestly, like, everyone does it. I feel like everyone does it. It doesn't matter if you're Quentin Tarantino or like Chris or like Wong Kar-wai. There's always a level of vulnerability when you reveal a little bit about yourself in your script. That's why a lot of people in a script sort of holds back a little bit.
Yeah.
They always hold back a little bit, like, I shouldn't give 100%. But like, in a weird way, I find it more fascinating when they don't hold back.
Yeah.
When they do go all out and make the mistakes and like be a little bit ridiculous, because it's a style. That is what style is to me. That's what makes you different and unique. We're all individual, beautiful-minded filmmakers. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very well said. That's really cool. What a cool look into your thought process for the beginning of this developing this film. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about production of the film, making of the film. Let me preface it by saying, so we decided, hey, I'll produce the film from the UK side of things, but I will be there to help Jody as the Hong Kong producer, do things on set. Obviously I don't speak Cantonese, but I can help with like moving things or working with the transportation, which is a big thing I did over there. So we discussed the film. We brought in all the crew, LFS people, some people based in China, some people based in Hong Kong. We had everything set up. We had our crew list ready. We brought Jody on. We interviewed a few people. Jody, who was a part of the international business program at LFS, was in Hong Kong. She said, yes, I'd love to do it. She was in between jobs at the time. You left about 3 weeks, 2 weeks ahead of time?
Before you or before the shoot?
Before the shoot.
Oh,
to prepare,
at least a
like
month. I think a month and a bit.
And I think you were staying with your uncle for a little bit and family over there.
Yeah, slept on the couch for 30 days. It was an experience, an adventure.
And you prepared the film with Jody. So I was kind of back home. I was watching from afar, trying to do the best I could. I came a few days before the shoot, and things were kind of prepared. You had rehearsed with the actors, Mitchell and Vida. You had discussed with the production designer, who was Hong Kong based. You were essentially set up. I remember we did a rehearsal in Jody's grandparents' home, which was now vacated. So we were kind of rehearsing in an empty flat in Hong Kong in the middle of the summer, preparing them for the roles, which was really interesting. I vividly remember that. We were able to hang out a little bit, have a little bit of meal, but of course, right before a shoot, everything's kind of busy. We were in Causeway Bay, right? Causeway Bay is the area.
Well, you stayed in Causeway Bay. I didn't stay in Causeway Bay. I was not rich and fancy. But I got you guys a very nice place.
It was nice. Yeah. We had an Airbnb. Koon was there as AD, assistant director, brilliant filmmaker.
You should interview her one day. She's incredible.
She's great.
She's doing very successful in China right now.
Yes.
Have you seen some?
I've seen some of the stuff that's going on with her. Yeah.
I'm not surprised. Can't say I'm surprised. I think.
No, she's amazing.
She's like a poet.
Yeah.
Like one of the few true artists that I know. Mm-hmm. That's like born into it. But anyway.
So and then we began. Tell me what you remember about the production of the film. Tell me about things the enjoyment that it gave you. Tell me some of the difficult things that were going through your mind at the time. With that perspective, I want to hear about that.
Oh boy. Should we start at the beginning or should we just go straight into it?
Whatever comes to your mind, in regards to production. Let's forget about pre-production, all that stuff. You did it, you made it happen. I want to hear about those days on set because they were fun, they were challenging. We were moved around a lot. We had a big van with us. we were in a club for one of the nights, like till like early morning. It was the last day because I remember we got a van back to bring all the production stuff back at the end of the day. So it was like a blur to me. So I want to hear your perspective on it.
Or I'll be honest, a lot of it was just pre-production.
Yeah.
Sorry to disappoint you. I know you wanted to go to production, but it was because I wanted to shoot my grad film, especially spending so much money on it, to be honest. And in the end of the day, I didn't really want it to make some great artistic cinema. I just wanted to go and buy myself a chance for an adventure, really. So that's why I say a lot of it was kind of pre-production, to be honest, Greg. In a sense that I wanted to go to a place, although thankfully I spoke the language of, that I wasn't completely familiar with because I'm not from Hong Kong. I'm based in the UK. That I want to go to a place I'm not very familiar with, go and see how their film industry works, and make my way to become part of it within a month. Me and Jodie and went to these crazy adventures to seek out a sunrise in different angles of the island, and me and her mom had to travel her mom had to drive us in the middle of the night so we can catch the sunrise. It was during the summer, so the sunrise happens like 4:00. To catch the sunrise and after like a long trek through these mountains in the coast of Hong Kong just to find a sunrise that looks good. And in the end we went with the mansion place, which worked best. But and to be honest, it was kind of a blow once you got into the filmmaking bit, because I felt like a lot of work was already done. And when we got into the battlefield, so to speak, when we got into the battlefield bit, it was just watching it happen.
Yeah,
it was like pressing
the clock unwinding.
Or like in coding terms, it's like pressing compile, and everything just flows. You set up this huge plan of crazy things that you want to do, and it just happened. And thankfully, for the most part, it went fairly smoothly. Yeah, it was a bit expensive, I'm not gonna lie, but I expected that from Hong Kong. And I would say it was nervous on day one because of a lot of technical things that happened, such as delays and stuff. But I didn't blame any of my teams, because I know for a fact that
I think Andy,
our production designer, was incredibly hardworking. It wasn't her fault that technical how things happened that causes a delay. And there was a lot of crazy things I did in day one. I think that was one thing that was a little bit regretful, was to schedule it like that, maybe.
Say it again?
To schedule such a big production, like most of the production change was set up for day one. And obviously we had like a little bit delay, and that was rough, especially when we're such packed schedule, like we're shooting even less than UK time. Like in Hong Kong, we typically shoot 16 hours. We shot 12.
Remind me, day one, where we were?
House in the studio, photography studio. That was another. I would say that would be a mistake, maybe, but
that was like his flat. His flat, first day.
His flat.
And we were in like kind of an industrial area of Hong Kong, where it was a lot of different studios, and a lot of Hong Kong, that area of Hong Kong, like where the production designer's studio was. Yes. I don't know if those were the same areas.
It was literally around the corner.
Yeah. She was close, but we were essentially in like, I don't know what floor of like when we were taking these big industrial elevators up.
And we had these giant cages full of equipment.
It was cool. It was like a photography studio, but it was like set up for photographs. Yeah. But we filmed his flat there. Him sitting on the bed, and it felt like kind of like a
old school
kind of like.
That's the only problem I have in retrospect. That's actually the bit I regret the most. In terms of location picking, that was the one that was arguably the worst, because it was the least authentic, ironically. Because I wanted a flat that's supposed to represent the working class.
Yeah.
Hongkongers. So, and obviously I wanted to also have a sort of homage to the renaissance of Hong Kong cinema, visual-wise. Like the flats that you see, the flats and apartments that you see that Leslie Chung stays in Days of Being Wild, are these places with these ugly green walls and steel windows with like peeling off paint. I kind of want that vibe. It's hard to get in Hong Kong. Even in the film industry, it's really hard to get. And they exist still. There are these flats and houses, although all privately owned and hard to get hold of. because I think they know that a lot of people who film want to bother them and they don't want to be bothered. That's why I didn't really push too hard to absolutely get those authentic Hong Kong style flats that still exist. And I had to go with the studio. Yeah. I think maybe given enough time, I think I would have achieved it. Or if I had the balls to go on and literally knock on doors and ask, hey, can I shoot in your place for X amount of dollars for a day? It's got to be so messy and annoying, but
that,
deal with it.
You know what? Another movie you recommended to me? Hong Kong Story?
Made in Hong Kong.
Made in Hong Kong.
Yes, Fruit Chan's first film. Crazy.
Fruit Chan, that's another filmmaker you put me on to, who I love. And I saw I don't know if it's a film print at the ICA. They have a theater there, and I saw a film print of Made in Hong Kong, and it looks amazing. And talk about like that authentic feel, and filming in lots of flats and those. Yeah. What are the names of the flats in that we're talking about? Like,
I don't know if there's an English word for it, but in Cantonese it's called Tong Lao.
Yeah, and like really, really cool. Like, you know, just the kind of the romantic relationship forming between them, and just the way it just feels
tight space.
Yeah,
Hong Kong is a
hot tight space,
and that's what makes it beautiful. That's what makes it so cinematic, isn't it? All these great Wong Kar-wai movies have done such wide lenses because they don't have the space to have depth, you know. And I wanted to have this reminiscent of this era.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's a big mistake, because it's a photography studio. Photography studios are massive in relation to what a Hong Kong apartment is. And it feels, if you lived in Hong Kong or know anyone in Hong Kong, or even understood the vibe, you know that it's inauthentic because it's so big. No one lives in a place that's so huge.
Yeah.
That's why I even had plans to make a false wall to tighten up the space a little bit, but it was so much effort and so much time, it wasn't really worth it in the end of the day. But also at the same time, we need to have the space so that he can dance in it. Yeah. So it's like juggling like forks and knives, you know.
I think for what you had to do, I think like you made that work. That scene in particular is great. Like I think it introduces those two characters. They have that conversation there and kind of kicks the whole thing into motion. So I think there's. Always in hindsight, but.
Yeah. And one thing is, I wish we had a shot towards the window. We can light from the outside, because I always have this dream of these shot. You can see examples of it in like early Wong Kar-wai works, like Days of Being Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, Days of Being Wild, where you have this big neon lights from outside nearby the window shining this bright red neon into the room, and then the room is dark and cold and blue. Beautiful emotion, beautiful mode. Though those practically doesn't exist in Hong Kong anymore because of government regulations with neon signs. Though I would love to shoot something like that in my lifetime, just like a proper.
So you want to do another film in Hong Kong?
Of course, it's the most cinematic city in the world, in my opinion. Everywhere you go is like a dream.
So do you want to do a feature? Do you want to do another short? What do you want to do there?
If I have somehow managed to finance a film, I have a couple of ideas of shorts I want to do in Hong Kong.
Another short.
Yeah, I did a little bit of research in Hong Kong actually. Last year. Was last year? Oh my god, it has been.
Because you went back. You went back because you bought your Hasselblad there.
Yes. No, I bought my Hasselblad after the shoot in Hong Kong actually.
Got it. Right. You went. That's what I'm saying. You went back, I think. Yeah.
But I went back last year to it's a strange thing to do, to be honest, but to be an interpreter for like for Hong Kong film market for like the British distributors.
Oh, cool.
It's a very interesting experience. Although a lot of times
this was a job.
It was freelance. I basically flew there for my own cost as well. But I just wanted to go there to learn in a way.
Yeah. I
think it's worth the money just to see like how these, although they're not very big, they deal with a lot of independent distribution in the UK to foreign markets, and it really disillusions you to what makes a good movie in their eyes.
Oh, for sure.
It's very genre heavy. And like I saw your interview with Fauzan, and he's right that a lot of stuff in Southeast Asia are like horror and comedy is very popular. But like a very...
You talking Fauzan?
I saw your...
Yeah.
I saw your little interview with Fauzan because he worked with me recently.
Oh, cool.
On a shoot with Daniel, and yeah, he mentions that a lot of Malaysian stuff is, because Southeast Asian is very hot on like horror.
Yeah.
But like certain type of horror. Anyway, just to get back into the point, what was I saying? Yeah, so I was in Hong Kong. I did a bit of research on a topic that I'm actually quite interested in, and it's also kind of tied back to Tango and Kowloon. The idea of intimacy and love and what that means to different kind of people, different people, different disadvantages. I would say, or how different. Let me phrase that properly so it's a bit more better. How people deal with intimacy and love, despite of having different disadvantages. For example, when Tango and Kowloon is the story about like someone who struggles to explore their romantic side despite someone who's very averse to physical intimacy. It's based on this exhibit that I went to at the Tate Modern about a Japanese artist who has a very interesting varieties of physical deformities that makes her life a little bit tricky. And these art pieces by this artist called Mari Katayama are about how it's like physical sculptures about almost like a interpretation of herself and her deformities in the form of these pillow figures. And a lot of her work is about how she attempts to strive to be to be like a typical woman despite her physical deformities. And one of her pieces about it's about a high heel shoe designed for someone with a very unique, with her sort of disability, where, because as the piece said, that the high heel shoes are designed for the typical woman with all her features in a perfect ideal, but yet a woman like her, who with her sort of unique disabilities, mean that she isn't able to experience those kind of things, but she strives to become she still strives to be the sort of woman as everyday sort of normal woman. So therefore, she designs something that makes her become that. It's fascinating. Piece, and yet, and because of that, I've been inspired to sort of explore that aspect of, I suppose, sort of disabled intimacy, I guess the best way to put it, or disabled love, as the person I interviewed describes it. It's very fascinating. So I spoke to, just out of my own whim, because I was so fascinated about her work. She's a physical performer in Hong Kong who has what's the best way to put it? Who has a certain disability, meaning that she can only use her feet to do a lot of things in her daily life, and yet she's very independent. Contrary to what you imagine, she's very independent to what.
I remember you were telling me about this idea.
She's very independent in terms of her aspects of life. She doesn't really need a helper or do anything. And it was fascinating the way I interacted with her. The way when we sat down on the table, I didn't think about this at all because, me being, very able-bodied. Even down to something as simple as like ordering from a menu, it was very fascinating that, in Hong Kong, a lot of times you order a menu from a phone, but if you have no hands, arms, how do you work? So it was very interesting the way we interacted. And
so you met this person?
Yes, I met this person. Cool. And I handed her the phone, and she uses her, I think it was her tongue or her nose, to like basically do what we do with fingers, and it's very accurate with it. And as we were having this dinner, we were talking about a conversation about like, I'm very interested in exploring this aspect about telling a romantic story about someone who is disabled and how they deal with sort of dating and everyday life and exploring of love and intimacy. Something that's so vulnerable. Because nothing you can't really hide when it comes to that aspect. And one thing she sort of mentions about like romance and love, about being a what's the politically correct term for disabled person?
Disabled? I don't know. Is disabled not?
It's disabled people.
Disabled people. So what was I on? how love and dating works as someone who's disabled and also a lesbian, which makes it twice as hard in the in sort of the dating world, especially in the very conservative Chinese. But even Hong Kong is relatively liberal. Most people are still rather traditional in their aspects of the beliefs as well. So you put yourself out there and you're being twice as difficult being both disabled and also being a lesbian it's quite a struggle. But what's fascinating about what she described is a lot of people describe what she says is like a lot of people say they're looking for love, they're looking for a significant other. In a sense that she's doing the same, but almost like not physical aspect, but like so let me reiterate that when a lot of people say they're looking for love, they're looking for a significant other, she says she does something similar, except it's almost in a weirdly physical way that she's making up for the fact that she doesn't have the physical features that others have. Although not to conflate it with the idea that she's looking for someone who's more able-bodied so she can do things. That's not what she's looking for. She's looking for... And in a lot of ways, she described a lot of people are inherently disabled in sort of metaphorical sense, in a sense that what disabled means in her world is someone who's lacking a piece about themselves. It could be physical in her case, and yet she's not just quote disabled in a sense that she doesn't have arms. She's disabled in a sense that she doesn't have for example, the confidence to explore her body through her arts. To put herself out there into the world, to express the things she wants to say. And that a lot of form of love is disabled love. You're looking for the significant other to make and fulfill the other half that you're lacking. And we have a very interesting conversation of what we interpret love and true love is, and then she says, a lot of people see, she's a firm believer of like the idea of disabled love. Everyone's looking for a significant other to fulfill a missing aspect about themselves. Sure. And I'm a firm believer that there's also a stage past that where it may have been that to begin with in sort of dating area or like in sort of romantic, or even people who are married, for many, many years, who are in this sort of quote disabled love relationship. Having the other person being there to, could be company. People are afraid of being alone, therefore they have someone else that they can rely on. Could be security, as depressing as that is. It could be physical aspects, as having someone to be able to do some harder physical stuff for you, for example, or like someone to make up for a missing aspect about yourself that you find weak or lacking in. But my argument was more an aspect that may be true to begin with, but as time go on, there is this magical barrier that it breaks. Maybe I'm too, what's the word, naive, you could say. But like I believe that there is such thing as true love, but that's not something that comes immediately. It's something that comes afterwards, after this quote disabled love. That develops over time. I would argue that maybe true love is the acceptance of flaws. No one person can perfectly fit the other piece. That is true. Like everyone's looking for it. Of course, that's why disabled love exists, as she calls it. But what happens afterwards? What happens in the long term? What happens beyond that? Not everything need to be solved. If you know what I mean. Similar to filmmaking. Let's say back to filmmaking. That's why it's very interesting. You asked me the question earlier, like, what mistakes do you regret? I was like, well, not much, because it's not about the mistakes, about the lesson. It's how you can accept it. Such as like how Bob Ross always says, there's no such thing as mistakes. There's only happy little accidents. And what I interpret that quote as is merely psychological mistakes. So. And going back to my idea of this storytelling and this idea that I wanted to explore, to go back to the idea of exploring storytelling and my next step, and the theme that I want to explore, which is I wanted to hopefully in the future and in case I get funding for it, that I be able to tell a story that explores this aspect of disabled love, or like people or the struggles of finding companionship, the struggles of intimacy as a disabled person. I think it's incredibly interesting because they do things very similar and yet very different to us, you know. And what I want to do is almost like to normalize disability, you know, to showcase that we're all, although different in different ways, but in the heart of it, we're all very similar. And that's really what all my movies are about.
I really like that. Yeah, you've pitched me this idea. It sounds like you've thought on it more. I love the idea, and I think you should do it. Absolutely.
Hopefully so. And it'd be beautiful to shoot in Hong Kong.
Yeah, because you've got a love of many things. You've got a love of obviously writing and directing, of working in the lighting and camera departments, but you're also on top, like kind of as the director of that, a director of photography. So I'd like to talk about the film that you DOP'd for Peter Borick, Paradise Found. Tell me about that film a little bit. We can talk broadly about it maybe. Can you tell me a little bit about the story and a little bit about some of the techniques you employed as director of photography to make it happen? This was a film that was shot this summer, right?
It's shot in March.
In March?
Yeah.
Wow, so a little earlier than... But tell me about it.
Wow, where do I begin? Here's the thing about it. I think it's a fascinating, interesting story that represents the zeitgeist and the struggles of the male population in the contemporary era. In a very negative aspect. It's a fantastic representation of like exploration into toxic masculinity, but that's how I see it. It's very different. I'm not sure how he sees it. This is where but I don't know how he sees it.
Tell me the story.
Okay, what it actually is about. Okay, so Paradise Found is a film about a very talented man with a golden voice who has such a strong, due to his strong what's the word?
Self-worth?
The opposite, lack of self-worth.
Insecurity.
Due to his insecurities, resulted in him being divorced from his wife. So he held this grudge on himself. But his insecurity, so he holds his grudge about himself and his own appearance, and yet didn't realize that what really really drove him away from his wife was his insecurities, not his physical appearance. So he is obsessed with making himself look stereotypically handsome, you know. So he goes and signs up for this service from this clinic by a crazy Russian doctor who has the ability to transfer your mind and your brain into the body of someone handsome and beautiful and perfect, in hopes that he could get his wife back, you know. And spoilers, in the end, of course, he goes through this very scary and horrifying process, and you know, and he being used as a success story. He gets a new wife called Kim, who is this, like, you know, as the name suggests, this sort of perfectly molded version of a woman, and yet towards the end, at the very end, you see that that's not really what he wanted. He's still, you know, he does all this stuff to seek happiness, and yet he finds none of it at the end through his metamorphosis.
Right, there are a lot of these interview scenes where he's I've watched it just once at the Crits, enjoyed it, you know, really enjoyed it, but it's interesting to hear your kind of interpretation of it. So tell me a little bit about, maybe tell me a challenge about the film, and tell me about a challenge making that film.
A lot. Where do you want to begin?
How about this? Tell me a challenge, but tell me about, there's a couple of really nice moments at the end. You do some really interesting lighting stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Who is your gaffer?
Unfortunately for that day, me.
Okay.
That was one of the challenges.
Because there's some cool interesting lighting things you do in it, some interesting locations. So, I don't know, maybe give me like just a thought. You know, don't need to...
Don't get too into it?
Yeah.
Well, I would say the biggest challenge is, I would say, managing the chaos.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stuff done quite quickly. We had to really rush some stuff, and a lot of things was really hard to deal with, like paperwork and stuff that was like, and then like scheduling that was tricky as well, and had to. Sorry. And how to move things and logistics. It was more of an exercise in logistics and creativity. But that being said, we did do a lot of very creative problem solving, and that end up, as you could see on screen, as you mentioned in the end. The funny thing about that was, the irony is that the most beautiful shot in the entire movie was the shot we didn't really plan. It's like, right. Yeah, it was more like a result of a situation than it is because what's interesting about that final scene is that we had an idea where we're going to shoot it, and we have an idea what was on the script, which is big light coming through, right? Mm-hmm. And that he embraces his light. But the problem is that it was nighttime by the time we got to the scene. Mm-hmm. And, well, there's no real source of light we can get outside the street light, and it wouldn't look really good and authentic. We wanted to evoke something of a sun ray, this magical sun ray. So,
can I ask you, before we get into some of the technical issues, what do you think that shot represented? And maybe can you describe the shot and tell me what you thought it represented at that point in the film? Because essentially it's the end of the film, and I think it's okay to give a little bit away here. I'm sorry, Peter, if this isn't, but I'll try and link to the film or link to something where people can learn more about it, because I'm sure it'll be playing at some festivals. But it'd be nice to hear you describe that shot and describe what you think it meant.
Well, throughout the film, that there is this side character that appears at the beginning and the end of the movie, and he represents the polar opposite of the protagonist, where the protagonist is on this journey in search of happiness through transformation of the self, and yet the irony is that in the beginning and the ending of the movie, that Milton, the character, is someone who is a bit dim-witted and doesn't really seek much in life. Mm. He's a janitor who works in this clinic and has a meaningless life, and yet he is absolutely satisfied and has found his happiness in the simplest things. In this case, a light coming in out from the street. And it's almost like what we wanted to do was we wanted to finally see it from his perspective at the end of the movie, which is something that's so small, like this ray of light being exposed in such a way as if it was like a godly sun, and he's embracing it. He was feeling the warmth of this light as if it's the beautiful sunrise of a new day. And that's supposed to represent, that moment was supposed to represent the reality, the message of the film, which is to keep to seek happiness in a simple.
I feel like to round it out, you've got would you say do you feel accomplished in having completed it? I mean, that's like a big step, I feel like, kind of after all this training to have done this, to have been able to DOP this. I know it was something you really wanted to do. You feel like you've accomplished something with it?
Yes, I think despite many flaws and challenges, despite many flaws and challenges with it, I think that's what I do it for. It's to learn from my own mistakes. It's to improve and see where I am at, and see what I can do with the tools and my abilities, and how I can help make the best film I can with what I currently have available to me. And despite that I don't think is anywhere near perfect. I think in retrospect, I think there's many things I can improve on, personally and technical wise. And I think that it would very significantly help my career. I think it very significantly helped my ability as different aspects as a director, as a DOP. There's many lessons I could learn from that. Yeah, and it was a crazy adventure, and it was well worth it.
So, okay, to finish everything off, here's my question. What do you want to do in the future? So we've discussed a little bit of this idea of directing another film in Hong Kong. You're working on your motorcycle license. You're gonna be getting your motorcycle license pretty soon, so you'll be able to get to set nice and quick. What do you want to do? Like, do you want to continue on? You're really trying to want to go up the ladder. Do you want to work more in commercial? Like, you've got a ton of experience. Your resume must be like bursting at the seams. What do you want to do? You know, what's the direction that you think is going to work for you?
I mean, the easy answer is I want to make money, right? And obviously this is a bit boring answer, which is like, obviously to have enough jobs regularly so you can make a decent living, so you don't have to worry about like month to month to month. You know, sometimes when you have like a quiet month, you're like, ooh, you know. Creatively speaking, I would say, obviously in the long term, I'd love to be a director, you know, to direct movies, but I think I'm still a little young and inexperienced. And not in the sense that I'm inexperienced being a director. It's more inexperienced in being life and being a storyteller. I think that just takes time and effort to do it through other aspects of filmmaking. That's why my main career right now is being AC, you know, because it is, in my opinion, the best position to learn from the best.
Yep.
You're closest to the screen. You're seeing everything being done. You see the result of what that vision is ahead of everyone else. And especially if you know a little bit of lighting and a little bit of cinematography, you can see and understand the thought process behind those decisions, and how the workflow of different DOPs and directors and how they pursue different goals and problem solve is fascinating. And in a way, when you become the DOP, you can use different aspects that you learn from these people and solve your own problems in your shoots too.
Cool. Well, Zijian Cai, I want to thank you so much for being on the United Filmmaker Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Greg. It's been a pleasure, as always.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the United Film Podcast. We are a self-funded organization looking to broaden and diversify the filmmaking culture here in London. Please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. It is through our listeners that we gain recognition and are able to fund new initiatives with this podcast. Thank you.